Okay, it's day 155, and this is part one. If you didn't see my last show last night about this American Intelligence Network broadcast, about this inner core, which I call the SES core, I called it the SS last night, but it harkens to Nazis too much and creates kind of a dismissal. So I'm going to call it the SES core from now on. But the idea was that there was 500 DOJ lawyers, which I said most of them were fake lawyers and they're actually people from the intelligence agency. That was my what I added to the model that was put forth by AIM. But this is an extremely important model because they were able to come up with actual documentation proof of the 500 sort of lawyers in here. And I wanted to say that this is it's so important to keep the eyes on the target. This is the target. This is the Praetorian Guard way before the SS ever had an enclave around the power base to control things outside of the Senate, outside of the different bodies in Rome. There was the Praetorian Guard, and the Praetorian Guard was very effective for about 300 years in continuing to control with a cadre of people on the inner core. And this is exactly what needs to be defeated if you're going to have actually a real democracy. So I think we're all in agreement about that. The only thing we're in discussion about is what is the form of this 500. You know, you almost think of that movie 300. What is the form? How is it organized? Because in order to attack it, what you have to do is attack the weak points. So if you don't understand the structure, you won't be able to attack the weak points. For instance, if this was the weak point here in the zero, this is the weak point here in the zero, this is where we're going to attack it. Okay. Now, what I've said is by looking at the metadata of how these individuals react, how they talk to each other, their emails and so forth, their text messages, who they blame in certain cases to try to get away from guilt, gives you almost the answer. They almost completely, it's almost as if they were spraying at night. They were spraying their building with, their defenses with fluorescent paint. They're showing you through their actions how they're organized. And it is a combination of judicial, and here's where kind of Podesta comes in, to different entertainment executives. Here's where Tom Nidas comes in, through the law enforcement and CIA. This is Randy McCabe comes in, through the Department of Justice. Here's where Mr. Rosenstein comes in. So it's that kind of a cadre. Now, we can all argue about what form that takes, and that's a good discussion because we don't all know what that form is. We're getting clues every day. Every day that Rosenstein and Mueller attack, they give away. It's just like when you fire from a position in war, you give away a little bit of your position. And we know, for instance, the Mueller team probably is going to be all SES, probably is going to be all SES in here. But we don't want to say that everyone in the SES core is a lawyer because that's like saying everyone in the Army is artillery, or everyone is in the Air Force, or everyone is in the infantry. It's one of a combination of a layered approach in terms of maintaining the SES core. That's the key concept. Okay, we'll get to the communications network and how that's done out of the United States communications in a little bit here with the NBC broadcast network. But that's the key to rely on right now is using the metadata from the conspirators themselves to actually define what the core actually looks like. Now, I say it's a combination of those three things, which is judicial, entertainment, law enforcement, and also the DOJ is in terms of enforcement. I think you're going to find on each one of these teams, I represented just as a straw man last night, 50 teams, roughly equal to 50 fusion centers. I think if you have a fusion center in, let's say, New York, you're going to be one of the big teams. You're going to have a state fusion center, and you're going to have a New York City fusion center, and you're going to have everything within the limits. To me, it's just easiest to divide it up state by state. Some people who are on the lower end of the totem pole, just much like senators being from Delaware, you're going to be the guy who has the SES core team in Delaware. To me, that maps it very easily so that people in the core can say, hey, what's going on in Delaware? Call the team in Delaware. And again, about 10 people per team just makes sense. This maps exactly along the fusion center lines. If you have a big city, you get an extra fusion center. There's about 35 big city fusion centers, and then there's one state fusion center. So to me, this is what their metadata has put out. And so why wouldn't I agree with that metadata? This is what the DHS metadata is. So I'm thinking you're going to be responsible for controlling your judges in your particular area. You're going to be responsible for controlling your key business executives, your key, let's say you were Delaware, you're going to be in charge of the relationship with Dow, the relationship with DuPont, et cetera. If you're in Los Angeles, you're going to have a smattering, like Tom Nitis, you're going to have a smattering of movie stars that you're responsible. George Clooney, here's going to be George Clooney. Here's your assets that you're going to be able to work with in entertainment. So it's going to be a little different depending on if it's Washington, D.C., which is going to be more judicial and legislative, whereas in Los Angeles, it's going to be more of an influence campaign. If you're Andy McCabe, it's going to be all about investigations, investigating your enemies, taking down your enemies, compromising your enemies, compromising business executives in New York and London and the different exchanges around the world. Rod Rosenstein is going to be a lot of making sure the right judges are promoted and so forth, and setting up different cases with the right judges and so forth. So everyone's going to have a slightly different responsibility, but we have models here and with lots of metadata that we can go on to help us shape, help us form what the construct is of this 500. Now I'll just move here real briefly, and the reason why I say this is the communication network here is I'm going to just introduce a new person, and I'm going to call him AD. AD is, think of your athletic director at your school of choice. You know who the president of the university of your favorite football team is. You know who the football coach is. You probably or may not know who the athletic director is, but you know he's the AD. So just think of this guy as the AD of Dark Weapons Investments. Here he is. He's involved in this company called MBC, which is this Muslim broadcasting company. Very much like NBC was started to sort of be an influence campaign in the United States, MBC is going to be this worldwide capability that the CIA has. This kind of an off channel or an X channel to be able to communicate. Now, we don't know yet if Rod Rosenstein's wife, or not Rod Rosenstein's wife, but Nellie Orr here, over at when she bought her Iridium phone for the takedown of Trump, we don't know that they were using this X band on these satellites or not. But if it was me, all commercial broadcasters with satellites have to reserve the X band for military traffic. If it were me and I owned the satellites, if I was AD and I owned the satellites, I would use the X band to communicate. Now I realize this is getting technical. So what I'll do from now on is I will, I'll show you. I'll probably bite my lip or something. I can't comb my hair anymore to direct the, I can't comb my hair anymore to direct the NSA. So I'll probably bite my lip to show when I'm talking about the X band. But remember, here's Mohammed Tahir Awan at Channel Logistics and Space Eyes, who's a part of this MBC broadcasting. Who else is a part of it? Is Al Walid, Mr. 37th Floor in Las Vegas. Who else is a part of it? Ibrahim, who recently got arrested. Ibrahim. So I just want to introduce this as if you crack the back, this is the communications network. These are the black lines going out. This is the communications network of the SES Corps all around the world, this satellite network. It could be, they could meet in person. They could always do cover bombings in Austin and meet in person. But I believe that the Blackberry network has been cracked. So the land terrestrial cryptography has been cracked. This is the backup plan here. The satellite is the backup plan, I believe. May be wrong, may not be wrong. We don't know yet. But if you want to crack the back of this SES, you have to crack the backbone of their communications. Just have to. First step was the Blackberries. The second step has to be the backup satellite network that forces them to do cover bombings in like Austin and meeting in person, which is extremely, extremely inefficient.